All right, welcome back in here. The early line on this Tuesday is we've got to get ready, of course, for week 4 of the NFL season. And while week 3 was interesting, the injuries continue to pile up and questions continue to be raised about, well, who's the quarterback going to be this week? Injuries all over the place. And while lack of winning and being able to provide any offense has been a big problem outside of the one game against Dallas for Russell Wilson and the Giants, but if we're being fair, everybody can throw the ball on the Dallas Cowboy defense. So the fact that the Giants coach Brian Daboll was non-committal to the Russell Wilson starting again this week, well, guess what? That means maybe, just maybe, the Jaxson Dart era may be about to begin. I mean, that is 3 games now. 2 of those games for the Giants with Russell Wilson, they couldn't get out of the single-digit category for points. Now, granted, they lost their kicker, before the game with Graham Minot. I don't know how that keeps happened last year against Washington, but yet they still managed to be able to score more than single digits. They weren't able to do that against the Chiefs at home. So now you got the Chargers coming up here. So the question is, should they make the move to Jaxson Dart or stick with the plan and let Jaxson Dart learn behind a veteran no matter what happens in Russell Wilson here, Adam? That's the dilemma.
Well, let's not forget, too, there are tea leaves to read when it comes to Brian Daboll. And I realize after week 1, he was a little non-committal, just somewhat non-committal to Russell Wilson. Russ comes back, has that great week 2 performance, albeit in a loss, not on him, more on the defense. And then obviously what happens in week 3. But this is kind of out of the Daboll playbook when it comes to the way he manages his quarterbacks. This is how he started to sound before he benched and eventually released Daniel Jones, who, as we know, is tearing it up with Indianapolis right now. So I think the writing is on the wall, Joe. I don't think they're going to be sticking to any sort of plan. I think it's panic time. This team is 0-3 in a division that is certainly not wide open. You know, the Eagles are going to win this division unless for some reason along the way they start to slump and the Commanders are able to overtake them. But either way, it's coming down to those 2 teams. It's not the Cowboys. And I would say that even if they had a healthy CeeDee Lamb, and it's certainly not the 0-3 Giants, but you're looking for respectability, right? I mean, you don't want to be right there flirting at the top of the draft with the number 1 overall pick again after you've just taken a quarterback. Even if you do, I guess, land there, you're going to use it to package down and maybe get more assets because you're not taking a QB at number 1. They believe in Jaxson Dart. Now, to what degree remains to be seen, but he was good in the preseason. Limited opportunity, but he was good. Some numbers: 32 of 47, 372 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was mobile as well. So I think there are probably a lot of reasons that this team is looking to see Dart in action in games that matter. They've already, in the first couple of weeks, designed some plays for him. It's not like he's just been standing there on the sidelines holding a clipboard. He's found his way in certain packages onto the field in these games. You know, they're starting to knock some of the, I don't know, early nerves off and make that transition possible and get them ready for the madness, because it is coming. Russell Wilson is a stopgap. He's not an answer. Wasn't an answer in Pittsburgh, certainly not an answer in New York at this stage of his career. Guy was great back with Seattle, even had some moments with Denver, but he's toast right now. And so it's only a matter of time before we see that Jaxson Dart Malik Neighbors connection in action.
Yeah, no Tyrone Tracy either. He is going to be he's shelved now with injury news, which means the Cam Scatterbo era is officially underway. In fact, he was the only bright spot for the offense of the Giants in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. But not only do we have a quarterback controversy brewing here in New York, question is, what do the Atlanta Falcons do after a absolutely miserable performance by Michael Penix Jr., and which watched all of a sudden Kirk Cousins come in the fourth quarter after a game was already out of reach? It was 27-0, and Raheem Morris pulls the plug on him. Kirk Cousins comes in, and you are paying this man $180 million to sit on the bench. And now there are going to be growing pains with a young quarterback like Penix Jr. We kind of knew it. The athleticism, the more tape defensive coordinators get on him, the harder it's going to be. And I mean, quite honestly, it would have been one thing if this was a game he had against that defense of Detroit we saw last night. But to have it against the defense of the Carolina Panthers, would we be shocked if a couple of more performances that we scratch our head with, Raheem Morris has to go to his $180 million backup in Kirk Cousins here?
If it's a couple of more 30-0 losses where Penix looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, then no, I wouldn't be shocked. But pulling the plug right now, that would shock me. Let's remember, Joe, one thing is a mistake here. These two things can't exist simultaneously and both be right. You can't pay Kirk Cousins that massive contract that they did and then go out and take Michael Penix in the top 10 in the same draft year. You can't do it. One of those things was an error in judgment. You can't take Cousins, assume he's going to be your guy, and, Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre, Jordan Love behind Rodgers' situation, conceivably in this era, sit Michael Penix for 2, 3, 4 years. It doesn't work that way in today's NFL. That's not the old days. In today's NFL, you get drafted to play, or to play at the very least, say, halfway through your rookie year. Patrick Mahomes doesn't sit a year behind Alex Smith anymore. You know what I mean? That stuff, it just doesn't happen. And so Penix, no, he didn't look good in the last game. He cost me some money. He cost a lot of people some money. But at the same time, this is someone that you got to go through the growing pains. You got to fight through it. You got to let him deal with it, because the second you start benching him and sort of, getting in his head, and you have him reevaluating this, reevaluating that, he's going and talking to sports psychologists, he's losing confidence, faith in himself. It is the best way to make sure this does not work out. I mean, look at Anthony Richardson. How many times has he been, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out there in Indianapolis? And now, with the way that Daniel Jones is playing, Anthony Richardson may never see a snap at quarterback for the Colts again. Not a meaningful one anyway. He's done. It's over there. And that's the guy they thought was the future. If you're Atlanta, and I know you're paying Kirk Cousins a ton of money, you can't allow that to happen now with Michael Penix, because Cousins has nothing to do with your future. Bad contract. It has to age out, and then he's gone. Penix is the guy that you invested draft capital in. He is the guy that you believe in. He's the guy that you got to grow with.
It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, because in many aspects, they created their own drama, thinking that there weren't going to be growing pains. And every time he falls flat on his face, there's going to be some rumblings about where is Kirk Cousins. Again, it's one thing to be a backup quarterback and make $3 million a year. To be a backup quarterback, you're paying $180 million and you're not winning games. Yeah, that pressure is going to be on Raheem Morris for the rest of the season for sure, until at least they decide to pull the plug and maybe trade Kirk Cousins. But at $180 million price tag, there's not a lot of teams that can just absorb that into their payroll. So we'll keep an eye on that as the weeks continue. Good news for the 49ers. Good news, bad news. Good news is Brock Purdy will be practicing this week. They are hopeful that he will be ready to go. He's already missed 2 games with a turf toe injury. But Mac Jones has stepped in and now won both of the games they didn't have him. He's 2-0 as a starter, but he got hurt in that game against Arizona as well. Aggravated the knee sprain that he also had an issue with during training camp. So they may not have the services of Mac Jones this week, which means Brock Purdy is going to have to be the go-to guy. Whatever the issue is, Brock, figure it out, get it better, rub some dirt on it, and get back in there. Welcome back in here, the early line on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Ranieri alongside Adam Kaufman. And before we talk some college football coming up this week, week 5, we're going to learn a lot about a few teams here this week with this schedule. Just to continue that conversation we were having about what are some teams going to do, starting quarterbacks remain a big question. And we're only heading into week 4 now, so we could possibly have a quarterback change in the Jaxson Dart era for the Giants. It looks like Brock Purdy will be back this week. Jaden Daniels, though, also a big question mark. We're hearing from Dan Quinn that he is a day-to-day situation right now, which isn't good. But, this is the unsung hero here in the NFL, and maybe one of the worst-kept secrets is you better have a competent backup quarterback to be able to hold the fort down. Now, there's limits to this, right? Asking a backup quarterback to, win you 6 games in a row here to try to save your season is one thing. But a good backup quarterback should be able to get you 2 wins like Mac Jones just did in San Francisco for Brock Purdy. I don't know that there's any rush to get Jaden Daniels back on the field. I wouldn't, if I was Dan Quinn, be rushing to get him back out on the field, not with an experienced guy in Mariota who just helped your team put up more offense and more points than Jaden Daniels had in the 2 games that he's played so far this season. So, don't forget, he's a second-year quarterback now in Jaden Daniels that didn't even look remotely close to what he did a year ago. And again, you give defensive coordinators year of tape on you to figure out what your tendencies are. You're not going to be as electric as you were a year ago. But Mariota, I think, more than capable of holding the fort down here for Washington, which is why you need a capable backup here. So I wouldn't push him, and I don't think there's a rush to get him back out on the field at this point, as long as Mariota can continue to deliver offensively like he just did last week against the Raiders.
No, couldn't agree more. I mean, like you said, Mariota with more offense in that one game than Daniels had in the first 2 combined. I realize, there was a good Packers defense in there in that loss, sandwiched in between the couple of wins that the Commanders have had so far, beat up on the Giants there in week 1. But Mariota, to your point, is a very experienced pro, just a good, solid journeyman backup quarterback who, as you noted, is capable of coming in and winning you games. To me, that I was invested in Washington to cover this past week. I saw a lot of value in that line as it plummeted from 7.5 points to 3.5 points with the news that Jaden Daniels was not going to play. To me, massive overreaction against a very underwhelming Seattle team, especially, or Vegas team, pardon me, especially defensively. On the other side, you're thinking about Pete Carroll, you immediately think of Seattle. This Vegas team, not great. And so Mariota was able to them out there torch them offensively. And I think that right now, as you said, you look ahead to this upcoming schedule for Washington, and sure, you'd like to win the division. It is Philadelphia's right now. It's 3-0 versus 2-1, and probably will belong to the Super Bowl champs by the end of the regular season as well. But Mariota, without a doubt, gives you a chance to at least stay alive in the fight. This coming weekend, you have the Falcons. Will this team be a little bit desperate to respond to what just happened and everything we've been talking about with the poor play from Michael Penix and anyone feeling like jobs are on the line? Sure, entirely possible, and it's in Atlanta as well. Still, I think Mariota out there is going to be more than serviceable offensively, so it comes down to, can your defense do its job? Are you going to win against the Chargers the following week, whether it's Mariota or Daniels? I'm not sure it really makes a difference the way that LA is going right now. It's just, this Chargers team is looking like a true bona fide contender, and quite possibly a team that wins this AFC West. First time the Chiefs haven't won it in nearly a decade, if that comes to fruition. And then you keep going. Bears, Cowboys. I'm not saying this is what they want, but you have a stretch here where if you really felt it would be beneficial to Jaden Daniels to kind of loosely shut him down. I know they wouldn't use those terms. They'll go week to week for as long as possible. But if you wanted to internally have those conversations, Joe, about shutting this guy down for about a month, it's a very favorable time on the schedule to do it. And I think you'll be more than treading water with Mariota out there.
I'll give you 2 quick ones here, Adam. You can give me yes or no, because the quarterback position in a lot of places, there are some question marks here after what we just watched in Minnesota with Carson Wentz. Obviously, the more experienced quarterback stepped right in. Didn't have to do a lot because the defense did the heavy lifting. But you know what? Getting the ball to the guys that matter is J.J. McCarthy. Is his job in trouble here? Does Minnesota say, you know what? Take your time. Let's go with Carson Wentz. And again, we'll see where it goes from here. Or does he get inserted no matter what as soon as he's ready to go?
The answer is both. I think they're okay with him taking his time, and the forecast for this injury was 3-4 weeks with his high ankle sprain. But it's his job when he's ready. They already sat him all of last year. Didn't have a choice, obviously, with the injury, but he sat all of last year. This is a guy that was a high first-round pick that is your future, not the journeyman Carson Wentz, who's been bouncing around the league since his time in Philadelphia. But right now, you could argue that Wentz is a bit of an upgrade on what we've seen from McCarthy, who has been flat out bad in 7 of his 8 quarters. Still, when McCarthy is ready, it's his job.
I would, without a doubt, if I am the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to get on the horn to Atlanta and see if you can figure out a way to get a trade involved here in some way, shape, or form here, because my goodness, unless they're going to do something Atlanta where, they're already firing offensive coaches here, passing game coordinators, wide receiver coaches. So unless that Cousins is going, they're planning on utilizing Cousins, Cincinnati has got to do something, because I'm sorry, that was the worst loss in franchise history. It was embarrassing. You need a quarterback, and I don't know if Browning is going to get it done for you. All right, welcome back in here, the early line, as we have now officially closed the books on week 3 of the NFL season, which means it's never too early to start talking about week 4. And it begins on Thursday night. Short week for both these teams. Big NFC West battle here between the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, of course, we know, lost Connor, their big running back there. So injuries affecting a lot of teams here through 3 weeks of the NFL season. But Seattle had no problem playing Georgia Tech over this weekend there. Adam, you and I covered that game on In-Game Live on Sundays, but and they did look like Georgia Tech uniforms there, New Orleans, but I think Georgia Tech might have given a better game. But now they hit the road. They travel to Arizona, short week for both teams. I just don't like what I see from Arizona here, but I thought last week was a game they needed to have. It felt like this week was definitely a game that they are going to need to have of Seattle if we're going to take them serious.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Seattle Seahawks, we know about the offensive firepower, obviously. There were some questions going into that most recent game. Jackson Smith and Jigba, what was the health going to be? He popped up late on the injury report with the illness, goes out, had a monumental first half, let alone an entire game, and Sam Darnold continues to lean on him. So I think that offense is in a pretty good place right now. I think we're seeing some inconsistency out of the Cardinals. Certainly Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. are not on the same page. Trey McBride continues to look good, but he has for multiple years, and they still don't win. Doesn't matter how many catches he has, how many targets, yards, all of it. He's still not helping this team ultimately win games, which, by the way, not an indictment of Trey McBride. It's just one guy is not everything. And this team has had so many issues defensively when it comes to, sort of nut cutting time, if you will. You have to find a way to win games, and they just can't quite get over the hump late in some of these contests. And now, in this situation, the game that, as you said, come Thursday night is a virtual pick'em. In some places it is a pick'em. In other places, looking at it here, the Cardinals are as much as a 1.5 favorite. As I dig deeper into this game, I'll have, maybe a more convincing, lean toward it. I right now, I see some value in Seattle on the money line, never mind with the points, obviously, when you're only talking about 1.5. I realize 1 point wins do happen, but I would rather just sort of take a flyer on Seattle there, right at even money, even plus money at some places, and see if the Seahawks can keep the winning ways going.
Yeah, again, usually when it comes to short weeks, I usually focus on the home teams if I like them. But what I've seen from Arizona doesn't lead me to like a whole lot of them. So that game is Thursday night, but we do have a big battle of 3-0 teams. Wow, one of these teams will register a loss finally between the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, Tampa continuing to deal with a ton of injuries. They're hoping to get Wirfs back at some point there on the offensive line. But they did what they had to do against the Jets. They got the win. Baker Mayfield is a gamer. Philadelphia, kind of the same thing. I can make the argument where they've had to grind 3 wins out this year. Nothing has been easy for these two teams. Philly on the road in Tampa, 44.5. What do you think we're getting?
So I guess I'll put it 2 ways, right? And like you said, we have 6 undefeated teams. Soon there will be 5, if not fewer, by the end of week 4. But I think the sensible pick is Philadelphia to win, to cover in this game. Clearly, it's the better team. It's the deeper team. I know there have been some issues on that, really both sides of the ball. I think a little bit of inconsistency in the defense. The offense is largely overwhelmed, although, you hopefully we'll start to see more out of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and all these guys as a unit, not just one-offs. Saquon is going to be Saquon. Hurts is going to be Hurts. I think Philadelphia does win this game. Now, all of that being said, Joe, if Philadelphia is leading this game by, let's say, 6 points or fewer, and Tampa gets the ball back with 2 minutes left, you better believe I'm putting some money on the Tampa Bay money line, because this is a Baker Mayfield that just, you can't count him out. It's back-to-back weeks with game-winning drives late in these games to steal wins. This Buccaneers team, sitting obviously at 3-0, absolutely could have that record, reversed at this point in time. I mean, they have just stolen game after game. It's unbelievable. The first week, a missed kick by Younghoe Koo that got him released by Atlanta was the difference in that game not going to overtime. Kind of a lucky win there for Tampa. And then again, back-to-back drives in the final 2 minutes to come away with victories, like wins stolen from the jaws of defeat. This Bucs team could be right there, with the Saints that we were talking about at 0-3. Instead, obviously, they find themselves perfect. And sometimes that's the makeup of a gritty, special team. And sometimes it's dumb luck. I think there's been an element of dumb luck, and Philadelphia is going to hand that team its first loss.
Yeah, it's rather be lucky than good. But, you look at Philadelphia, Rams, let's face it, that was a 1-point win. Let's take the, 500-pound bulldozer returning the block kick for a touchdown out. They were lucky to get that one done. 3-point win against Kansas City. Dallas was only a 4-point win. So it's a lot of close games for Philly as well. And that starts to take its toll on, I think, both these teams as this season progresses. But that should be a fantastic game. And then you got to have a big question about, are we talking about Daniel Jones as a MVP candidate? Well, I'll tell you what, if he goes to the Rams this week and does what he has done in the first 3 games he's played, yeah, we're going to have a different conversation about Daniel Jones the rest of the way here, because 1 game may be a fluke, 2 games, all right, give me a break. But 3 games now, and if he does it against these Rams, but the question is, can he do it against the Rams?
It's funny, I was just looking at the odds to see if he was there for comeback player of the year anywhere, and I don't even see him listed, so I guess he doesn't, meet the standard. I don't know. There's a narrative there in getting benched and missing time toward the end of the year and just sort of being cast aside. But no, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is probably going to run away with that award if he can stay healthy. Daniel Jones, he's not going to get my MVP vote. Not that I have an MVP vote, but if I did, Joe, but he is certainly, made this conversation very interesting as to whether we take the Colts seriously. And by that, I don't mean as a potential division winner. I think going into the year, there were some people that said, I'm not sold on the Texans. I could see the Jaguars. I could see the Colts potentially stealing this division. So that wasn't out of the realm of possibility, even though obviously you could get a good number on it. But nobody would have viewed any of those 3 teams as a Super Bowl contender. And Indianapolis right now is looking like a team that is capable of making a long playoff run. We were talking about it over the weekend. They've rarely punted this season. More often than not, these drives are ending in points, whether it's touchdowns or field goals. The defense, I suppose has some question marks, and we'll see that play itself out over the course of the year. But what Daniel Jones, especially Jonathan Taylor, certainly Michael Pittman Jr., among others, there in that offense, they have looked uh, borderline incredible compared to expectation. These are not your typical household Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey type names. All due respect to Michael Pittman, who's been, a good receiver in the league for a long time, but and Jonathan Taylor, obviously one of the premier running backs. But this is a grouping that just people didn't see this realistically, and what they've done, it's been impressive. But like you said, you beat the Rams, that's real noise. You lose to the Rams, people are going to maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're going to, again, great litmus test coming up in this week 4 of the NFL season. A lot of teams, in fact. What kind of response are we going to get? We're going to talk about a couple of more of these week 4 matchups, preview them out, see if we like any edges as the early line continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in here. The early line on the SportsGrid network as we are getting ourselves ready and looking ahead to week 4 of the NFL season. Now that week 3 is behind us, I'm Joe Ranieri. He is Adam Kaufman. And the big question marks coming up this week, Adam, are going to be about, well, how do teams respond to what just happened here in week 3? And if you look at what happened last night to the Ravens, yeesh. Hello, defense. Do you have any? Apparently they don't, and it's a concern here. Now it's a short week, and now they got to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who were able to Sunday night finally get off the schneid there, get their first win of the season. But the Ravens have to go to Arrowhead with a lot of questions and red flags. So what's going on here? Should they be the favorite on the road against Kansas City?
Boy, good question. I think ultimately, I'm frozen in thought because I want to say it should be a little closer to a pick'em. Doesn't it feel like it should be just a bit closer? Like 3 feels like a big number. Even if you want to say, yeah, Baltimore should be a favorite, feels like point and a half. It doesn't 3 to take them, because remember, this game, like you said, is in Kansas City. So if that were in Baltimore, effectively the odds makers are telling you the Ravens would be, 6, even 7-point favorites if we look at it the way that we have in recent years. And that to me doesn't make a lick of sense off of what we've seen lately. I realize that the Chiefs have underwhelmed, especially offensively. I mean, even against an atrocious Giants defense in prime time, they still struggled to put up points. It's a Ravens team that has no issue putting up points, but defensively, as we've talked about extensively on this show, they can't stop a nosebleed. And so, I don't know. The line doesn't feel right to me. I see value in Kansas City, a team that should still, both these teams at 1 and 2 are going to have an element of desperation. I just think that if this means anything, both these teams by the end are likely there in playoff spots in one form or another. I just think right now Kansas City is the team that should be wondering, boy, are we going to win this division? This Chargers team looks legitimate. This Chargers team offensively and defensively looks scary. Special teams, all of it. This team is getting the job done right now. We should feel threatened. We need to go out and take this win and narrow this gap a little bit. The Ravens over in the AFC North sucks. It's a terrible division. I mean, I'm just pulling it up now. The Bengals again are 2-1. How long are they going to survive, as you mentioned earlier, with Jake Browning? Because we know Joe Burrow is out for an extensive period of time. And even if it is not the Browning factor or a trade for a Kirk Cousins or somebody else, you've got all sorts of issues with your defense. That defense is not going anywhere unless it finds a way to improve rather rapidly. And Pittsburgh, I realize 2-1, but that is absolutely, it could be 0-3. You steal one from the Jets in week 1. This past game against the Patriots that you won by a touchdown, you did so a game in which the Patriots turned the ball over 5 times, including twice in the red zone inside the 5-yard line. That is a game that the Pats absolutely gave away. And so this Steelers team, I've been saying for a while, I think Pittsburgh is this is the year the Mike Tomlin streak ends, and it's not a winning season. They win 7-8. They miss the playoffs. The Ravens are going to go on their run at some point, and they are going to overtake these teams, and they are going to win this division. The path is not as clear in a competitive AFC West, especially if you believe that the Broncos are still to be taken seriously. So I'm going to lean into KC in the desperation and take Kansas City with the points and even say that the Chiefs are live to win this game.
Chiefs at home has been not once now, but twice in a season has been an underdog. I haven't seen that in a very, very long time. We'll see what they can do there. And then the Cowboys are back home, and the Packers, after just giving the game away to the Browns, got to go back on the road and take on, two teams coming off of embarrassing losses. What are we going to get with the Packers and the Cowboys? No CeeDee Lamb here.
I would like to see a response out of Green Bay. I mean, you can't implode. You can't fall apart the way you did in the final 4 minutes there against the Cleveland Browns. Fine, you allow a field goal, but to then a touchdown and then get a potential game-winning kick blocked, and that is taken back to field goal range, and you walk it off again, just to fall apart against such an inferior team, a team that you were favored by 2 scores against, and to lose outright. And so now it's a bad team, bad defense, and like you said, down its best offensive weapon in CeeDee Lamb. I know it's not easy to win in Dallas, obviously, but I think you're getting the Cowboys at the right time, and you're getting a little extra anger and urgency out of the Packers. I like Green Bay to not only win, I would say take the points as well. Lay it.
Yeah, and I'm never a fan of laying a touchdown with a road team here, but I'm not even sure with that Packer defense. Are we expecting the Cowboys to have enough points to even come close to this thing up and over? Or are we looking at maybe just another team total under? Because they don't look very good even offensively right now.
No, and that may be what it is. And I haven't pulled up what the team total under is for the Cowboys. But yeah, if you're getting, let's call it, I don't know, 18 and a half, 19 and a half, and you can go under that number, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were actually Green Bay is a bigger favorite in this game than they were in the look-ahead markets here, because they had them at about a 3.5-point favorite. Now we're talking almost a touchdown favorite based upon what we've seen from the Cowboys here. And quite honestly, whose idea was it to schedule the Jets and Dolphins on a Monday night? The battle of 0-3 teams is what we're getting on Monday night. The good news is I believe there's a second Monday night game again here. Even worse, though, we got to watch Jake Browning throw the ball to the Bronco defenders at least 2 or 3 times in a game. Talk about an opportunity to bounce back here. Both the Broncos need a win. They got to get something going here. And the Bengals started off 2-0. And it has not been good since. No Joe Burrow, nobody walking through that door to save them. This is going to be a bigger game. We'll have to deal with the Jets and Dolphins, the battle of winless teams on Monday night. But at least we get the Broncos and the Bengals, and both those teams need a win in a big way. Speaking of wins, we'll have a couple of best bets for today's card. We'll do that as the early line continues on the grid.